Because I think when people think, oh, he plays, in the NFL or Major League Baseball, he has money, he should never have to work again. But it's like, one, that's not true, and two, going back to what you're passionate about, you don't want to just, sit around and do nothing all day.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of What's Next. And our next guest is just such an amazing human and has this story of sort of fortitude and gratitude, grit, grindy, pro athlete at the highest level, a monster of a man, can hit a golf ball off the planet, let alone throw a baseball at an incredible velocity. But his story is not the one of went to a combine or got drafted, signed here and then has a storied career in one city and retires and goes straight through. There's been a lot of bumps in the road. Some incredible parts of that journey have taken him around the planet, which is so cool to know. And he too is in this sort of next season of still playing that sport and where is life going to take me next? Literally, we're in that spot. So without any further ado, Florida Gator, multi-year Major League Baseball player, tour of the planet, Shaun Anderson, welcome to the show. It is so great to have you, man.
Hey, thanks for that intro. That was pretty spot on, but interesting and fun. But yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'm just gonna look through here really quick, and I'm laughing because, as you know, having been a pro soccer player, we always feel like our journey is so unique between San Diego, Monterrey, Mexico, out to Detroit, to Dallas. Like it always feels like, well, that's my unique journey. But you drafted by the Red Sox, you've been with the Giants, the Twins, the Rangers, Orioles. You've been to places like Buffalo, which is where my boys were born. I ended my career in Buffalo, New York. You played in Jacksonville. You played in Texas. Obviously, you played in Mexico, and then ended up in Korea. We're going to talk about that. What a fascinating story. So you really have been around the planet. And if someone would have told you, drafted in 2016, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If someone would have told you in 2016, this is going to be your journey of heading around the planet to be in the game, showcase your game, and work the game, do you think you would have still said yes? I know it's a crazy question to start the show with, but do you think you still would have said yes?
That's an interesting question. I mean, to play for 11 different organizations I never would have thought that would be a thing in baseball, but if you would have told me that was going to be my journey, and I kind of in 2016, I probably would have been like, oh, sweet. So that means I'm playing baseball for that long of a time,
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't believe you, but I probably would be excited because, looking back on it, obviously there's been so many people that I've met throughout the journey. I mean, if you 11 organizations, that's like 15 teams times, the 40 people you meet on each team. That's a lot of people, a lot of good people, a lot of people to learn from. And it's just been a wild career and just so much fun. So the blessing of it all has been, I've been healthy the entire time, knock on wood, but it's been a wild journey for sure.
Well, as the audience knows, so we've got a lot of ex-pro athletes, some currently pro, that are making their next step into, most of the time, entrepreneurship, but it could be business partnership, whatever it might be. The crux of what we typically talk about is taking those experiences learned on the ball diamond, soccer field, ice rink, wherever that is, and transitioning into either business that's operating or kind of what's next in those areas. And I think oftentimes it's great to hear that I can use those tools that, to your point, I met 40 new people every team I went to, let alone every year that I was doing it. And when you add up that network of people and the influence that you can have, and you step out into the business world, you're like, oh crap, that's like having 11 different divisions over quite frankly, a short professional business career, right? So I think that's first and foremost a really cool take on that most people wouldn't do. And the second is, to your point, if someone said, hey, 11 years later, you're still going to be in baseball, still working it, still enjoying it, you'd be like, hell yeah. All right. But it kind of goes to, everybody wants the baseball trading card, but is everybody willing to put in the work and the miles that you've had to do and have the fortitude to get there? And I think that's really the kind of the meat of the stuff here, right? So if we talk about going back to that view of what you had in coming to baseball, and then being on part of that journey. Have you always had this, like, I can do it no matter what attitude, or is that something you've sort of found and ground while you've been going?
I think it's been a built up of a lot of qualities over the year that I've come to learn. You know, starting in high school, it was more so just kind of playing the game, you know, having fun. When I really transitioned to high school, that was more of like, okay, now we're starting to play serious baseball rather than just, you know, play for fun. You know, I got on a strict workout routine. You know, I've been with the same guy for almost 15 years now. His name's Scott Forsman here in Davie, and I started with him summer going into freshman year, and you know the 5 a.m. workouts, and you know working out until you can't like sit on the toilet, you're so sore, you know. And it's just like learning at that age of, it was really just discipline. It was learning how to show up on time. It was learning how to work, learning how to, you know, run with other guys that, you know, I was working with Eric Hosmer, Devin Marrero, and these guys were already first round draft picks, and I'm still in high school, and just seeing those guys work, building that community at a young age really helped me develop at a young age, you know. And then going to the University of Florida after kind of building that, you know, I guess base to say, going to the University of Florida, it was all about winning, and transitioning the game now to, instead of, you know, having fun with your friends in high school, the next level was winning. And all we talked about at University of Florida was winning. So that was kind of my mentality going to University of Florida for 3 years, was you got to win. And if you don't win, it's a loss, you know, and there was no gray area. It was either a win or a loss. And I kind of just took that into my whole career through the minors. All I wanted to do was win. And I knew the work from high school. So the biggest thing for me was knowing how to work and win, and just carrying that through the minor league career helped me kind of go through the levels a lot faster with that at the forefront. You know, I didn't really have any off the field distractions because I never introduced that to myself through, you know, high school, college and whatnot. And it helped me ultimately, you know, get to play in Major League Baseball with the San Francisco Giants in 2019.
Wow. Okay. So, as the audience knows, we're all about experience, not opinion. That's why I take a lot of notes. Also, I'm a goalkeeper, so not the brightest bulb on the tree. I love what you said about building community, because my notes here: discipline at an early age. You built a community. You had this aspirational, like you were in high school working out with guys who were pros, winning, and no distractions. If I take the word baseball out and put business in, it works perfectly there as well, right? So I think, you know, audience, just dial into this, right? Because you're getting a sense of being in the mind of one of the world's highest performing athletes. The rules don't change. Shaun's not going to probably, I could be wrong, Shaun, you could shock the world here. You're probably not going to give us something that someone goes, oh my gosh, I never heard that before. You're just reinforcing the fact that it's not always sexy. Discipline's certainly not sexy. The desire to win it sounds great, but it's freaking hard. Having the discipline to show up at 5 a.m. or 8:30 p.m. or devote an entire day like you just did last Friday at Pro Day to throw in front of scouts where you don't even have a contract, like that takes discipline. And the building of community is part of, you and I were talking about this a little bit offline, that community ends up pulling you forward. Right. So I love that you've sort of teed this up for us, which is everything in sport can be used in business when it's the things that help to get you there, which I think is just amazing. I want to go. So can you probably can go quickly through drafted in 16. Give me the teams and the locations of where you've been, because I don't think my intro did not do it justice talking about just Major League Baseball, because minor league baseball, my guess is not a lot of private jets and flying around with chefs and stuff. So give us the rundown of what's the journey for Shaun Anderson been like?
Wow. So like minor league teams too?
Yeah.
All right. So left University of Florida in 2016, drafted the Red Sox, and went to Lowell, Massachusetts to play for the Lowell Spinners. And that's, you know, ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. You know, that's short season, low A ball. So I go there in 2016, finish the year. 2017, I'm in spring training in Fort Myers with the Red Sox. Then I go to Greenville, South Carolina, low A. Do well the first month, get called up to high A in Salem, Virginia for the Red Sox. Out of nowhere at 12 a.m., I get a phone call that I've been traded to the San Francisco Giants in 2017. So the next day, fly out to San Jose to play in California for the San Jose Giants. Finish the year in San Jose. Then the following year in 18, spring training is in Scottsdale, Arizona for the San Francisco Giants. I start the year in Richmond, Virginia for the Flying Squirrels. Then I get called up to the Sacramento River Cats that year. And then finish the year Sacramento River Cats. 2019, start the year in Sacramento for the River Cats. Was there a month, get called up to play for the San Francisco Giants in May 15th of 2019. Finish the year with San Francisco. Following year, go to big league camp, and it's 2020, so kind of COVID year kind of shuts down a little bit. So everyone went home for a couple months, and then we come back. I think it was like maybe June or July. 2020, played with San Francisco Giants all year. And then going into the off season, a week before or 2 days before I was about to fly out to Scottsdale for spring training, get a call. I was traded to the Minnesota Twins. So now I have to ship my car back from Arizona to Florida, go to spring training with the Twins, new opportunities, new team. I didn't really know anything else. I mean, I hadn't been traded since 2017. All my boys are with the Giants, but
oh my gosh.
So then I'm with the Twins. I start the year in St. Paul, which is their AAA team. Get called up, get traded to Texas Rangers, was in Round Rock. Then I moved to Baltimore Orioles that same year, and I'm playing with the Baltimore Orioles. Then 2 months later, get a call that I'm going to San Diego. So playing with the Padres, up and down from Padres and El Paso, which is their AAA. Finished with San Diego that year. Off-season hits. I get a call that I'm going to the Toronto Blue Jays. So I start 2022 now in Toronto Blue Jays. Was up and down between Toronto Blue Jays and Buffalo Bison, which is their AAA affiliate. And then finished the year with the Blue Jays. And then now I'm a free agent for the first time that off season, and I get a call from Korea within the first month that they want me to come play in Korea. And it was an interesting choice. Never thought I'd go to Korea, not have to go to Korea, because I thought it was a really cool experience getting over to play in Asia. But I was definitely blessed with the opportunity to go to Korea, and sat down and thought about it, prayed about it for a little bit, and decided to take it to Korea in 2023. And so went to Korea, played the whole year in Korea. And then for the last month of the year, ended up signing a deal with the Phillies, just because it was like Korea was over and then had a month. So signed with the Phillies, was in Lehigh Valley. And then this past year, went to Mexico, signed out of Mexico to Texas Rangers, and then was traded to Texas Rangers to the Miami Marlins. And now we're back to this year of free agency and waiting to hear where I'm going to end up going. So it's kind of a lot, but it's been a journey.
Yeah, a lot, and probably easy for me to say, super inspiring, right? Because I think everybody wants to talk about, again, I want the baseball card. I want my name on and my face on a baseball card. But you look at that journey and you say, would you be willing to get there? I think most people would be like, I don't know, maybe. But the reality is it's not all glitz and glamour. It's a shit ton of hard work. To your point, you've got to have faith in yourself. You got to have some faith, being able to just pray about, where am I going, man? This is out of my hands. God, give me some insight into what's next here and the unknown, but knowing you still are good enough, the game will find you as it's done repeatedly. As you're building up that sort of muscle of being able to go somewhere and assimilate, I think it's important that, look, if you're building a business right now, take heed in the story of that muscle that Shaun's talking about, of going somewhere, checking with the team, becoming a part of it. It transitions into business, but it's also, it's expanding your network. It's really giving you the strength to do that. It's probably not a ton of fun, as Shaun will tell you, but it's going to make you better in the end, right? And Shaun, you and I had talked about the very first time we met, your trip to Korea, like you said, didn't have to go. It wasn't like reluctant. It sounded like a cool opportunity. I think it would have been easy for you to go there, of what I know of Korean baseball, that, as an American going there, it's almost like European coming here to play soccer. Everybody's like, oh, you must be better because you were from where it's from. And when you went to Korea, you could have probably just, like, I'm from the US, played Major League Baseball, look at me. But your path was different when you got there. So maybe talk to us about, like, when you got to Korea, what did you do? How did you help the guys? What was, even down to like the workouts and stuff?
Yeah, I actually want to touch on your point when you brought business into kind of the transition of me bouncing around everywhere, because there's a saying in baseball where it's like it's hard to get to the big leagues, but it's even harder to stay. So
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of if I were to think of it in like a business aspect, it's like you wanna have a multi-million dollar business or whatever it is, but sometimes it doesn't always go that way, and you take like a huge downfall into your business, and it's like if you still have that North Star and at the forefront that you want this successful business or you want to be in the big leagues, you find ways to get there. I've seen a lot of people that I've played with that, that failure kind of gets them to drop lower and lower. And it's never really easy for them to kind of push through that barrier of entry of being a Major League Baseball player. And, to keep the goal at the forefront and just keeping at it. That's always kind of been what I, value. And I think in business, it's kind of staying on that is really important. But
Spot on.
going to your question about Korea, I didn't know what to expect. One of my really closest friends, his mom is from Korea. So I asked him a lot about the Korean culture and whatnot, and asked people who had played in Korea, because I know I'm going there and I know there's a culture standard there. So it's like, what shouldn't I do? What should I do? And just getting a kind of platform just so I can go there and be respectful and kind of jump right into the mold of these Korean guys. So my plane ride over there was actually 14 hours, and I learned how to read it. So there's a bunch of characters, and for 14, you're just memorizing the characters and the sounds. So for these 14 hours, I memorized how to read it, and I just started rattling off everything that I could read. And I'm sure my accent sounds kind of funny because I'm not saying it right, but they loved it. So I think that kind of helped me break the barrier to start talking to them. I had a translator, but there wasn't a lot of English speakers. So having the translator and me speaking a little bit of Korean, not even knowing what it means, just saying it was kind of the barrier to start talking to them a little bit, because they're a little bit reserved. But I didn't realize until about the first month or two going into Korea that, they're a little bit, I don't want to say they're behind. They just have a different outlook of baseball. There's not a lot of power hitters. It's more contact. They don't have a lot of, guys who are throwing really hard. It's more about like junk and stuff like that. So a lot of the younger guys were asking about my routines and my experiences. And I've always kind of just been, like I said, head down, work. All I know is work, discipline, win. And to get a lot of these teammates to come up to me and ask me about my experiences, I kind of transitioned to learning how to lead a team. I never really had to do that in the past because I was kind of the younger guy coming up. I had, the veterans that were telling me what to do and stuff like that. But when I got to Korea, I actually learned how to, portray my, what I'm passionate about, how I train, and, how I train might be a little extreme for some people, but I was kind of okay with it. And I just expressed that to them. And I think the Korean experience for me was really about learning how to lead a team, and just because there's only 3 foreign people allowed on the team. It's usually 2 pitchers and 1 hitter. And so I wanted to take that opportunity to really like see what I was capable of and see if I can really, get with this team and try to win a championship.
Wow. It's so cool on so many different levels. I mean, if I'd be remiss if I wouldn't say personally, like just proud of you for doing that. Honestly, again, most people, I haven't been around every aspect of every sport, but at 57, I've seen a lot, and that story isn't always told. I think most of the time it's I reluctantly went, or I went here and they were lucky to have me. So you not only learning the language, so off the plane or the characters, you at least had something to say. Hey, I'm trying to assimilate to what you guys are already doing. I think is great, and obviously that created an open door, and you stepped through it, which is just amazing. And you also said you were learning how to lead, and I think that's such an important thing because in this group, to your point, a coach is telling us what to do, a personal trainer, the team dietitian. As athletes, we do come out of this environment where most of the time we show up and just work hard. And if you can make that happen and you have the fortitude to bounce a little bit, you're going to make it, right? I mean, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but someone's directing you where to go. You got to have the stuff to make that happen. But then you get out in the world of business, and to your point, it's like, oh crap, okay, yeah, I'm going to probably get punched in the mouth here a few times.
Totally.
I love that this sort of learning how to lead spot was also at the forefront. Transitioning a little bit, because I have to imagine, so you're in the baseball career, you're coming out of a pro day, which means you're hoping to catch somebody's eye. I've been around a lot of guys in all different aspects of sport where even in their rookie year, they know that this thing has a shelf life. Like we don't, I'd say, unfortunately, I got 11 years and I wish I had 31 years, like getting paid to play games, pretty freaking awesome, but it does have a shelf life and it's going to end. So as you start thinking about whenever that day comes for you, what's on your mind? Like, as you think about what's next, either through questions, thoughts, what's kind of going through your mind? 'Cause I know a lot of our audience are probably like, shit, that's a really good question.
Right. That's been kind of an overarching question for me the last, I'd probably say 2 or 3 years. Seeing kind of my close friends that I grew up grinding with at the gym and, they played pro ball, they no longer are playing pro ball. And they were asking themselves the same question as well. And it took them a couple of years to kind of get the footing of what they want to do. So I kind of sat down and started thinking about, well, why can't I set the groundwork now? That way, when I do step out of baseball, I can kind of just hit the ground running and, kind of just get right in it because, sports is kind of interesting. You never really talk about what's after sports, right? There's not really like a seminar that's talking about how to buy a business, or how to start an app or what it's like to lead. I mean, to lead a team, you could, they totally talk about that. But as far as like the business side of it, like what to do with your money, there's not really people to talk to about that. There's a couple within your agency, but I would say like maybe less than 10% of people like know what they want to do after baseball, after sports, and I don't know.
I think
such
that's a high number.
Idea. You think so?
I do.
Well, actually, what would you think it is?
I think it's 3 to 5%, and it is still a guess. Like I don't have any math to prove it.
Totally.
And I love that what you're saying. Sorry, I feel like I cut you off there.
No.
Is we're told that we talk about it, right? So if you and I are just sitting around as athletes, someone would say, but you're around like the sponsors in the stadium. You did sponsor day. You got to meet the vice president of Coca-Cola. I heard you guys talking about business. He might have offered you a job or she might have offered you this. And so in general, I think society says, oh yeah. And by the way, you're retiring a gazillion dollars, doesn't matter. And it's like, actually the number in my bank account it's always relevant. But in this case, I want to know like what's next for me, not what's next for my bank account. I have my investments somewhere. I hopefully have been a good steward of those things, regardless of what I'm getting paid. But it's not being about rich in money. It's like, I want to be rich in my life. I want to be rich in time and relationships and building. And that's why I think it's 3%, not even 10, is because no one talks about that. They talk about, of course, you should manage your money and not go bankrupt. but well, yeah, thanks. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, that's not very helpful.
I think there's so many sides of it because I think when people think, oh, he plays, in the NFL or Major League Baseball, he has money, he should never have to work again. But it's like, one, that's not true, and
Yep.
two, going back to what you're passionate about, you don't want to just, sit around and do nothing all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to find where those passions are. Um, and that's to answer your question. I'm not sure where that is right now. And that's the questions I've started to ask myself because I have had such this unique journey and I love the game so much, it's outside of baseball, it's just been more baseball, because it's the training, it's the meal preparation, it's everything in that. And I've just, started asking that question now over the past couple of years of what it is I want to do. And, I really want to try to find these community groups or these groups of people outside of baseball or even people who have played baseball before and now are these entrepreneurs or these, high level, individuals that I can talk to about it because I'm sure they were going through the same thing in that transition outside of baseball. But I really want to involve myself in something that can make a difference in the game.
Yep.
I don't see myself, stepping away from the game just because I have been passionate about it for so many years.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for being raw because it's, the old adage when we were in school, you're probably asking a question that everybody else wants to hear. This couldn't be more true. This was literally the genesis for the show. I didn't need to do a podcast. I had spent enough time around people and Marissa, your girlfriend, just a sweetheart of open book, right? High performer, but still saying, man, I'm weirdly kind of stuck in this. What's next? Having played professional golf on the LPGA tour, like what's next? And so I think just asking that question is a good start. My advice, unsolicited maybe, would be, I think first and foremost, maybe I'll ask this a question. What do you think your superpower is? I mean, I listed a lot of stuff in here, but if you look within, what do you think your superpower is? Forget baseball or business. Just if someone said, "Man, you show up every day, whether you're a friend on the golf course, uh, helping a guy move out of his condo, or coming in to speak to me about organizing my team." What's Shaun Anderson's superpower?
I feel like that's a question I'd like to think about for a day, but off just off the rip right now, I'd probably say my superpower is, I would say discipline is probably my highest one. I'm very punctual. If you need something done, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it very meticulous and the best of my ability. So whatever I'm producing to you is the best I can do. And I've always taken pride in that. And I think that is part of my superpower. And I don't know. I'd have to think about it a little more to give you a better answer. But off the rip, I'd probably say the
Actually,
discipline
that's
side
the
of it.
best answer. If I give you a day to think about it, you're probably going to give me a bunch of stuff that we're going to distill back to. You're a disciplined dude, and my guess is, and folks, insert your word here. For those of you fortunate enough to be watching this on YouTube, when Shaun said the word discipline, some people literally look like they just bit a lemon when they say that word. They're like, his face lit up, right? The idea of being disciplined, on time, produce, like I under promise and I over deliver. I do what I say I'm going to do. That brings you joy. And so I think part of our superpower, if we're going to leverage what we already did as an athlete or wherever we came as a high performer, your superpower isn't something that the world goes, here's an attaboy. That's easy, right? That's why I wouldn't give you a day. I'd say, tell me right now,
Right.
what you come up with it's true. And it's the thing that gives you joy that, when you bring to somebody else and you share it, it's actually going to be like, wow, man, that I never looked at discipline that way. And the second would be, as you think about your network, and again, speaking to everybody listening or watching, is surround yourself with as many people who have been there and done that, right? And I heard you say that. It could be in baseball, it might not be in baseball. But whatever sort of your vision is, I want to be somewhere where I can use my discipline, whether that's in a training environment, I want to build a sports facility, I want to own a team perhaps one day, or I want to buy a franchise in any aspect. Ask yourself who's been there and done that, because there are plenty of people, especially with where social media is today, who have an opinion about what you should do, what Shaun Anderson, the baseball player, should do. But the reality is, without the experience, they're not going to say, actually, there's Shaun Anderson. Then there was a guy who also played baseball for a period of time. right? And those are actually two separate things. And one of the hardest things about retiring, and I know this from the soccer world, is when I left soccer, I was Brian Finnerty, the soccer player. I wasn't Brian Finnerty, the husband, Brian Finnerty, the new father of twins, Brian Finnerty, a business owner. I had this persona created around soccer. And not until I stepped back and really understood that my superpower does not come from kicking a soccer ball or taking one in the face as a goalkeeper. It comes from stepping back and learning, being around those other people. My superpower is most of the time building high performing teams. So if that's where I leverage that, where can I get environments and be surrounded by people who have already done that, and then ask them those same questions, like, how did you use your superpower? Like, oh
So when you
man,
so when you stepped away from soccer, how did that transition look for you to what you wanted to do, and where did you find those people that helped you take that next step? Like, did you know you wanted to start a company? Did you know you wanted to lead a company? Did it take a couple months? Were you journaling? Like, how was that transition in your brain to get there? And then how did you take action to find the people who could help you get there?
man, welcome to the What's Next podcast by Shaun Anderson. That was
But
awesome.
that's the hardest part, right? Is
Yeah.
taking action on what that's going to look like,
No,
you
I
know?
literally just got chills. So I don't think it's any secret to our audience. You and I have talked about this. I'm a believer, and I prayed pretty diligently about it. I played 11 years. So my 10th year in Detroit, I knew my contract was coming up, and I was fortunate enough to still be in a good spot in my game. And I knew my next, and we also, Denise and I knew we were pregnant with twins that summer. Denise was pregnant with twins. So I
For
wanted
your
one more
first
year.
set of kids?
What's that?
For your first set of
First
kids.
set of kids. Yeah.
Wow,
And
okay.
I knew I wanted to be a really present dad. Won't get into my childhood, right? But it's like didn't want to be the 6 day a week work dad. And so I wanted to have some freedom and flexibility. And I also knew I didn't want to be on the road for the next decade playing until I was as gray as I am today. So we kind of knew that the next year was going to be the last year. And man, the anxiety started to build of like, crap, what next? I had always done entrepreneurial things. So that felt like, okay, I wasn't going to go work for KPMG or something. I was going to be starting something on my own. I loved sport and I loved creating teams. I met Frank Tanana, who a very famous baseball player. Obviously, I got to be in a Bible study with him. And the pastor for the Detroit Tigers had said, like, I knew Frank. We played golf a few times. He's like, why don't you ask Frank about retiring? And I got a really good long cup of coffee with Frank. And it didn't have to do with opening up High Velocity, my sports facility, but it was the game is going to want to pull you back in. And again, you're not Brian Finner, the soccer player, but if that's who you think you are, when you retire, the phone is automatically going to start ringing. And when it does, the offers are going to come in and you're going to get tempted to go chase back. But if your North Star is, I want to be a present dad, the best version of a husband I can be and a friend and all those things, and that does not involve being on the road again or moving your family to another city, then stay true to that North Star. And I also loved, I'd been in so many sports facilities around the world playing soccer that I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do. And so I put those things together. I made a plan, ran it by Frank again. And he basically said, okay, this is your plan. You're retiring last season in New York and you're opening this facility. I went and raised money. We leveraged our house to 120%, which you could do back then. And it's like, no, I'm putting literally brick and mortar in the ground and I'm not leaving. And that was kind of it, which was cool, right? I had my next thing that didn't have to do with me just being a soccer player. It was like I had the next part of my journey and I had really good advice, right? And Frank had been there and done that. He had retired. He's basically said, I'm going to go be a teaching pastor and a speaker. And he just committed to it. But the phone did ring, as Frank had said. I was tempted to leave this newly formed business and go back out and put a jersey on. But because I'd kind of built a plan around that and I wasn't that disciplined compared to probably where you're at, but I was exercising the muscle immediately. Like, okay, I got to build this up because Frank said the phone is going to ring. It's coming. And he had been there, done that. It was true. The temptation
Yeah.
was there to go back. And man, I was just so fortunate and blessed to have had that counsel. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, how do I find those guys? Right. And Frank and Jeff Totten, who's the pastor, they're just so meaningful and nothing to do with business, nothing to do with soccer. It was just like
Right.
life is going to come at you. And it was super cool to have that insight.
What a transition. I can't imagine on the end of your career and about to have twins and not know where you're going to go. It's a lot, it's a lot to throw you at once, but
Yeah.
Playing 11 years of soccer, you can handle it. You've been handling 0-0 games in overtime. You know what I mean? And it transitions to life.
It does. It puts it in perspective, right? Because those 0-0 games always seem like the end of the world if we lost 1-0, and the top of the world if we won. And then, yeah,
Because you're the guy who's got to block it.
Yeah, the second part of life where you're managing twins, and if I'm lucky, I'm helping change diapers, and you look at those little guys, and you go, "Oh man, okay, the world just changed." Or at high velocity, we've got, at any one given time in our busy winter season, over 100 employees. Some of them old enough to have families that are all under our stewardship, and 23 years later, we've seen marriages happen. We've seen kids born. We've seen those kids work at our facilities and then get married and have kids. To really date myself, that's what it really means. Like, where are you going to go and do your thing and use your superpower and use your strengths, whatever you want to call it. So I think maybe thanks to your question, also answering some of that is you just ask around and start to accumulate some of those people who will say, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about what I did. I may not even know much about baseball, but I can tell you how I opened up a sports facility and why I think it's awesome, and also I can tell you it's freaking hard and it sucks." Like find people on that journey, and as you kind of know, okay, no matter what, I want to leverage these things about me, and I'm really curious about X. When you keep those as bumpers, you get a lot of other advice and information for sure. But I think that will pour into, and again, whether you played a minute of pro sports, if you're transitioning from working for the world's most powerful law firm or accounting firm and now going to go do your own, go talk to somebody who broke off and went and did their own, and just ask them, like, what part sucked and what part would you never trade that's so awesome? Build up your library, right? Which I think is amazing.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, great question. So as you think through, okay, you've got your kind of what's next coming up. To your point, baseball kind of gets to decide when you finish or not, right? You're getting to that point. As you think through that, what would you tell yourself? I kind of like to tease this out. If you could go back and talk to yourself 11 years ago and say, because you're doing it now, you're like, I'm still in the game, but I want to prep. I want to be in that 3% who's not, or I don't want to be in the 97% who are like, what the hell do I do? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do I do it? Is there anything that you would have wanted to start earlier? Again, knowing what you know now, which you're just on that journey, but anything you would have wanted to start earlier or told your younger version of yourself, like, hey, make sure you are what?
I mean, I think the easy question is, everyone knows after the fact. I wish I would have got into real estate a lot more, because when I was drafted, I think I should have made the decision to live on my own, move out, and start buying properties. At the time, obviously I can say that now, but I just, after I got drafted, I was so ready to play pro ball, and all I knew was, working out, getting my body ready, recovering and stuff like that. And I wish I would have told myself to kind of starting to invest that money and maybe on a couple properties and see where they're at now. But or just even to get myself, the thoughts rolling, because it didn't take until a couple of years until I bought my first property. And I wish I would have known a little bit earlier to start doing a little bit more with my money. And I didn't know that at the time. I always just gave it to my financial guy and let him do it. But I wish I was a little more educated on it, and knew what was going on with it. I just was so worried about, or I guess not worried, but I was so driven to, okay, let me make my workout in the morning, and then I got throwing, and then I got to recover. It's just like I was always so baseball because that's how I grew up. I guess knowing now, I wish at the time I would have maybe funneled a little bit more of other things other than baseball. But then again, looking back at it now, I mean, that's what got me to where I am. I've always been so invested and kept baseball at the forefront that there was nothing else. So in my mind, it was, the discipline to get to the big leagues and compete and win in the big leagues.
It's awesome. I mean, honestly, I think that conflict clearly we can hear, right? We'd all love to do that. I wish I would have bought Apple, the first week that it came out, or whatever it is, or Microsoft or Netflix. We didn't, but you know who you are, right? And we already said in very quick, me forcing you to come up with an answer. Discipline was like, stay focused, man, do your thing. And so I think that I wish I could have started earlier, but the reality is you didn't. And here's where you are, which is awesome. No regrets. I think that's especially when you're true to who you are, which you've done. And you and I have talked about this. You just talked about it in the show. You spent 14 hours in an airplane. I call it airplane and windshield MBA. No disrespect to my alma mater, San Diego State. But when I went there, it certainly wasn't the Harvard of the West. And my chip on my shoulder, my imposter syndrome came from, I didn't go to a good enough school. I'm not smart enough. I'm not all the BS that we fill our heads with. And I did learn when I got to that spot in my career, which is about year 5 or 6 of like, I think there's going to be an exit here and I hope I get to choose it. Yeah. But what's my kryptonite? My kryptonite was I'm not smart enough. I didn't go to a good enough school. I took that as a little bit of juice and just said, okay, go get your windshield MBA, man. I mean, back then there weren't podcasts. So it was, my bookshelf is stacked full of some of the just, from the Stephen Coveys to the John Maxwell early days of writing. I just was a voracious reader and listener to books on tape anytime I was in a car or a plane. Because I just wanted more information. I think that's kind of what you're saying. So guys and gals, if you're early in your career, wherever you are and you're on this journey, I can tell you, you have extra time, even if it's just to learn a language on your way to a transition, or maybe even more important would be, I have some interest in real estate. Let me just start to poke around about it. I'm curious about buying a franchise. What else could I read and listen to about that? What podcast could I tune in? Shaun and I were talking about that offline. Like, where do I start? This is a pretty awesome one. My guess is thousands of people now are going to get to hear you. And number one, be inspired, which is awesome. And thank you for that. And number two, which is leading me to my second point, where do we find you? Right. So maybe give us, and this is going to be in the show notes, folks, in case you're driving. But yeah, if people want to get in touch with you, just to ask a question or give you a shout out or just follow you on your journey, where do they track you?
Yeah. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. Please ask as many questions as you want. I'm always down to talk shop about baseball, life, whatever it is. And it's SHAUN. So Shaun.Anderson _, and that's going to be on Instagram. And that's pretty much all I'm on is Instagram.
Keep it simple, man.
But going back to your original question, I think part of it was I knew when I was done with baseball, there was only this, some people only have 1 year, maybe 2 years to play. Some people have 10 years. I wanted it to be when I was done, I did everything I could to make that possible. And I didn't want it to be, if I came out of the game, it was, dang it, I wish I would have spent more time stretching rather than going look at houses in real estate. You know what I mean? And I think that was always been why I haven't pursued it more. Okay. But now I've kind of, as I've matured and kind of realized that there are times where I can learn more about it. I can learn more about real estate. I need a little bit of an outlet to get away from, training all day. That's kind of been the maturity side of it towards the end of my career. But I think the first beginning of my career, I don't think I would have changed anything as far as, I wish I would have learned more about this, because I've always been so headstrong about everything it takes in living to get to the big leagues and perform at the highest level that I wouldn't have changed it. So,
well, and your journey would suggest that, right? Which is, I couldn't sum it up any better. You're living your perfect self, right? I mean, we always think that there's a different version of ourselves, but you're staying in alignment with who you are, which is awesome. You've done that. You've proven that. Folks, if you need more of this, right, which I'm assuming if you tuned in and you're sitting through and listening and you got to this point, we're going to have Shaun's contact in the show notes below. As I mentioned, you can always reach out to us at Opportunity Seed. This is what we do, right? We help athletes make their journey. We help businesses find their profitability. We have a network of awesome people like Shaun who are maybe getting started, and others with multi-million-dollar companies who have been on the journey that have said, for no other reason than I just want to help, hey, plug somebody in with me, right? Our job is to be a conduit to help you build that, to help you find where you're going. And so if you like what you hear, drop us a note in the show comments. Always good to answer those questions. We've been pretty busy this last couple of weeks since the beginning of the year. Lots of really great questions. Give us a like and subscribe. That's how we grow the channel. That's how we get more unbelievable guests like Shaun on the show. And again, if we can help you on any part of that journey, That's what we are here to do. And the whole genesis of this is to help you find what's next. So we appreciate you joining. Thanks, Shaun, for being on the show, man. You're an awesome dude, an all-star, rock star. I already know we're going to have you back on again, so I'm not even going to give you a chance to say no. So you're coming back on again, and we just really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I'm definitely down to come back again. I think there's a lot more unanswered questions that can be had. So let's do it.
So again, folks, like, subscribe, join us, and let us help you on your journey to find out what's next.